Good afternoon, you're watching On Point. We are now going to cross straight to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is speaking somewhere in the country. Let's go straight to that.
In the global community. This membership of the global community was more than achieved when our Springbok team made us all proud in Yokohama. That just confirmed that indeed we are members of this global community. We went into that match as underdogs. Some thought that South Africa would never rise above itself. Some thought that we were yesterday's country and we would never explode on the global stage and grasp that Webb Ellis Cup. And we proved them wrong. And we trounced them and came back with a cup. On the global scene, apart from having emerged victorious in Japan, we are also a proud member of a number of multilateral institutions, such as the UN Security Council, the Non-Aligned Movement, the G20, BRICS, the G77 plus China, and the African Union, and many others. The report reflects that our democratic dispensation unleashed the most creative energies amongst our people in sport, arts, music, literature, film, and dance, as well as science, technology, and innovation. Gender equality has been a central part of our struggle for emancipation. Since 1994, government has enacted legislative reforms, approved progressive policies, and implemented programs that give expression to the constitutional rights of women and girls to equality, human dignity, freedom, and security of the person. There has, in this whole period, been a substantial increase in the representation of women in the judiciary, in parliament, in the legislatures, in cabinet, and indeed in the public service. Despite this progress, our country, though, still experiences high levels of violence and gender-based crimes against the women and the young girls of our country. The economic empowerment of women remains one of the most significant challenges after 25 years. In other areas, our reform of the education system has been notable. There is now almost universal school enrollment of children aged 7 to 15. There are now more than 800,000 learners below the age of 6 in grade R, and many more keep getting into our ECDs. The matric pass rate has increased from 58% in 1994 to 78% in 2018. We have almost doubled the number of special schools for children with disabilities and special needs. Total university enrollment has also doubled and now stands at over 1 million. In 1994, this figure was around 300,000, and most of those who were in those universities were exclusively just from one racial group. Today, well over 1 million young South Africans are in our tertiary university institutions. That is simply phenomenal achievement by a young democracy. Access to health care has also been significantly improved since the democratic government introduced the policy of free primary health care for children who are under 6 and pregnant lactating women in 1996. Life expectancy is one other area where we have actually astounded the world, scientists and the world health professionals, in the way we've been able to improve life expectancy in our country. And some have even said the improvement that we have recorded is, in the number of years that we've improved it, is often seen over much longer periods that span 40 to 50 years. And we've been able to do it in a short space of time. Child and infant mortality rates have been significantly reduced. Access to antiretroviral therapy in the public health sector has grown from 45,500 patients in 2004 to over 4.7 million in 2019. However, evidence points to a rising burden of non-communicable diseases, which will require dedicated focus from health and other sectors responsible for social determinants of health. Now, the 25-year review report that you will soon get in your hands notes that, notwithstanding all the legal and policy instruments of redress, we still have 3 problems that persist: poverty, inequality, and unemployment. This is largely the result of skewed ownership and participation patterns in our economy. It is this skewed and deformed economy that we inherited from the past misrulers of this country that has yielded us this legacy. Over the past 25 years, we have introduced a range of policies, including broad-based Black economic empowerment, employment equity, affirmative policies in our procurement and industrial strategies, and land restitution and redistribution. Yet we are not yet where we had hoped to be in terms of the impact that we had hoped that these policies would have. Black direct ownership of the stock exchange in our country still stands at around only 3%. And Black people still account for only 25% of top management in the private sector. Furthermore, women still account for only 20% of top management across the public and the private sector. This is a serious weakness, and this is a weakness that we now have to confront. In 1994, democratic South Africa inherited an economy that was in crisis. I characterize it as a deformed economy. Deformed because it was an economy that was structured never to utilize all the resources that it could have utilized to grow the economy to a much bigger size economy, firing on all pistons. It was an economy that was so badly structured that it only fired at few of the pistons that it thought it had available. It was an economy that never utilized the greatest gift that we have as a nation, the human resource, talent that our country has. Yet the size of the South African economy over this past 25 years has doubled We inherited an economy that was of a much smaller size, which was deformed, which was broken, which was of a much more inefficient economy. We have doubled the size of this economy. The number of people who are employed in this economy has also doubled in 25 years, from 8 million to some 16 million people now work in this economy. That too is a phenomenal achievement, ladies and gentlemen. While significant interventions have been implemented by government aimed at redressing what was done wrongly in the past, and also policies and interventions that are pro-poor, South Africa remains the most unequal society in the world. To cushion the most vulnerable members of our society against socioeconomic adversity, we have provided what you would call social security support for many of our people in areas such as health, education, housing, water and sanitation, and electricity provision. Poverty alleviation grants have now been extended to well over 17 million beneficiaries, covering the aged, children, and people with disabilities. These measures have by and large improved the standard of life of millions of South Africans, and they've also reduced poverty. And it is in this area where the government, the governing parties, various administrations has taken a very clear and conscious decision that this is an area that no matter what the difficulties and the challenges are of a fiscal or other nature, we will never allow South Africans to have the social security that we have provided to them be removed from them or even be reduced. This is an area that we are committed to because the lives of our people matter, and we will keep to that whatever the challenges that we have in our country. 25 years into democracy, the area of special planning and special justice are among the areas that still require attention. And may I say, urgent attention. Although more than 3 million houses have been provided to poor families in our country, many of these houses have been provided and located far from economic opportunities and social services. We have not followed the trend in the provision of housing settlements that many other developing countries have done. We've tended to have our people accommodated on a continuous basis, far and far away from areas of economic activity. The trend in many countries, in major cities, is to get all the poorer people into the city, to densify the cities and enable poor people to be closest to areas of economic activity, so that they do not have to spend a lot of money traveling to look for jobs or going to work, so that they are much closer to the basic services that would support their lives. What we have tended to do and to allow is to have living areas very far from the cities. Our new approach to spatial planning is to now move our people into and near economic centers so that they move into the cities, we densify our cities, and our people become much closer to areas where they can find jobs and where they can work and conduct business. There has been massive progress in meeting our people's basic needs. 80% of South Africans now live in formal dwellings. 14 million households now have piped water. 16 million households have sanitation, and 84% of all households in our country have electricity. Land reform and rural development is one of the top priorities of our government. Between 1994 and 2018, a total of 8.4 million hectares, or 10% of the agricultural land available, has been transferred to black beneficiaries through land redistribution and restitution programs. We need to accelerate the pace of redistribution of land. We also need to improve the support that is made available to beneficiaries and do much more to enhance the quality of life of our people in the townships as well as in the rural areas. Today, in fulfillment of our commitment to unblock the obstacles to reform, we will hand over 2 title deeds to the communities whose land claims have been finalized. These are the community of Mawewe, whose claim falls under the ambit of land restitution, and the community of German Heavy Force, which falls under the ambit of tenure security. Over the past 25 years, we have done much to improve the lives of our people. Indeed, we can say that South Africa is a much better country to live in today than it was 25 years ago. However, the triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, and inequality stubbornly persists and affects many of our countrymen and women. We have adopted 7 national priorities for this administration based on a new electoral mandate which dovetails very neatly with the recommendations made in the 25-year review report. We must transform the economy so that it is able to generate growth, but it must also be an economy that will be able to create equitable socio-economic opportunities for all South Africans. To do this, we must build a social compact for radical economic transformation that addresses economic exclusion and it creates more jobs. It should support sustained land reform, but it should also have an industrial plan for localization and innovation and the development and the maintenance of infrastructure. Talking about infrastructure, as the Chancellor of this university, it's always a great marvel to me to come to this university and see the progress that continues to be made with the infrastructure build that we've been involved in since this university opened. Every time I come, I find that there's something new that has happened. And the Vice Chancellor, Professor Mayekiso, was telling me that we have great plans of ensuring that this university becomes a truly top university with the best of what new technology can offer, what modernity can offer. And this, I have no doubt, as the newest university in the country, is going to be truly the best university in the country. Now, earlier as we were opening the court, Judge President Lekhodi was in his best mood as we were opening his really beautiful and outstanding court. And he says, you know, President, it helps to be the last born, because his court is the last to be built and he has the best court in the country, and he is smiling from, chin to chin. He is a very happy person. And that shows you the strength of infrastructure. Nations are made and built out of their infrastructural development. Over the past 10 years, we neglected our infrastructure build, having built up a lot of infrastructure, which my brother Danny Jordan can testify to. As we were moving to 2010, the infrastructure built in our country was second to none on the whole continent. And we saw yellow equipment all over the country. We saw cranes all over the country as we were ramping up infrastructure build. Since then, we saw the tapering down of infrastructure, and it is this element that we now want to boost. We want to boost it so that it can be a shot in the arm for our economy, because through infrastructure we will be able to create more jobs, we'll be able to boost the manufacturing sector, the construction sector, the creative sector, and many other sectors indeed. But at the same time, we must focus on education and the skills revolution. This should include early childhood education, improving reading and numeracy skills, and broadening access to post-school education and training. We must also consolidate and also strengthen the social wage to ensure that all South Africans have a basic standard of living. All South Africans do have quality basic services, and ensure that government is responsive to the communities of our nation. We must also dismantle, as I was saying, apartheid special patterns through integrated special planning, especially with respect to infrastructure and human settlements. We must reduce the high levels of crime, particularly crimes that are perpetrated against the vulnerable members of our society, particularly women and children. We must change our traditional approaches to socio-economic development. The new integrated district-based approach that we have embraced as a government is about targeted development and focuses on taking development to where our people live and where they also work. And we must promote South Africa's economic trajectory through integration of our region here in the southern part of Africa together with the African continent as a whole. We need to join other countries as we establish the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but also as we implement the African Union's Agenda 2063, which sets out a clear vision of where we want our continent to be by 2023, 100 years after the formation of the OAU. This report, which you will get shortly, should, and we hope it will stimulate intense and hopefully at times ferocious debate among South Africa's 25-year experience of democracy. This is what it is intended to do. We hope that people will be able to look at it critically, to look at it like Sankofa, which I referred to keep looking back, but at the same time looking forward, to bring back the past so that we are able to move to the future. Let us all have a say on what we believe we have achieved, our nagging challenges, as well as the future that we desire. Rather than just being critical on an uninformed basis, let us go through this report, which is based on the lived reality of our people, and be critical on an informed basis, and be able to have thoroughgoing debates and discussions of what this 25 years has meant to all of us. So government is not putting it out as a prescript of what we should all believe in. It is putting it out as a document around which we should have discussions and debates. I want to
Well, this is where we say goodbye to our SABC3 viewers, but we continue on the SABC News channel on President Cyril Ramaphosa, who's speaking at the Mpumalanga University.
There are technical teams. Members of these teams have already been introduced and we've seen them. The report is correctly titled Toward a 25-year review. It means that we would like South Africans to look at it and say, is this representative of what we have been through as we've been moving forward? And at the same time, remembering that those who move forward often look back and say, where have we come from? So much of what we are putting forward is to say, we have come from far. We've come from 25 years where there's been rigorous work, but there have also been mistakes that have been made in the 25 years. Let us look at the mistakes, the errors, missteps critically, but let us also look at the triumphs. Let us look also at the achievements that we have made. For we are indeed a great nation that tends to go up and down like the Springboks. Before they achieved their victory, they waited for 12 years. And it seems like nearly every 12th year we do achieve a victory. But I have said to them, as you applaud this great victory, I have said to the Springboks, I now want us to reduce this 12 years. I now no longer want to have a wait of 12 years. I don't have 12 years to wait. I just want to wait for another 4 years before they get their next rugby cup as well. Thank you very much.
All right, that was President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking at the University of Mpumalanga at the launch of the 25 review report of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The report looks at progress made by government since the dawn of democracy in 1994. The president highlighted poverty, inequality and unemployment as problems that the country still faces. He also added